Hello everyone and welcome to Tariq and welcome to our special segment Tariq classes for class 12th history, and the chapter for today is colonial cities, urbanization, planning and architecture. In this chapter, we will discuss the process of urbanization that took place in colonial India. What were the factors that made these colonial cities, the social structure within these colonial cities. We will see Madras, Calcutta, and Bombay coming up as new colonial centers, which were very different from the previous older towns of the pre colonial times. And we'll see how, because the East India Company, these places were basically fishing and weaving centers, and because the East India Company, got here first in these areas, so how this became a very important part of the English East India Company. The colonial agents, they settled in Madras in 1639, in Bengal somewhere in 1690, and Bombay in 1661, because Bombay was given to the English king as a dowry from a Portugal ruler. So how were they so different from the previous pre-colonial centers? The old towns, the pre-colonial old towns were very different from the new, coming up. How the pre-colonial towns are so different from Calcutta and Bombay and Madras. And आप जब ये cities बननी शुरू हुई, तो you could also see the छाप of the colonial architecture. You see colonial buildings and different architecture. You have Gothic, you have Victorian architecture there. So आप बहुत different art और architecture देखने को मिलता है.
पहला टॉपिक है towns and cities in pre-colonial times. Now, in previous chapters, we have seen that India did not just have rural centers or the imperial capital center. There were also towns and cities that were populated by the urban class of sorts. But what gave towns that character, or what gave villages that character that separated them from each other? Now, very basic, villages were basically production centers जहाँ पे the people were mainly indulged in agriculture, or they foraged from the forests, और उसी के आसपास जो इनकी economy थी, that would be depended on that. They would create a lot of surplus, in the sense कि जो agriculture से जो crops होते थे, उसके बेसिस पे revenue आता था, taxes collect होते थे, and all this would be sent to the towns. Now, the towns were urban centers where the population was not dealing with agriculture directly, but then this was the place where administrators lived, where the ruling elite lived. This was a place that created occupation for artisans and craftsmen and people who would come and sell their goods. So mercantile activity was happening in urban centers. Generally, towns were separated from the village by a fortified wall. So there was a clear distinction between the villages and the towns, and more often than not, the townsfolk dominated over the village folk. Obviously, क्योंकि towns में आपके ruling elite बैठते थे, आपके administrators बैठते थे, and from there they would they would directly dominate over the village that dealt more with agriculture and subsistence practices. Even though towns were fortified and the identities of the village and the town were pretty distinct, लेकिन उनके बीच में जो exchange of people था वो काफ़ी fluid था. For greater opportunities or to sell their produce, the village folk would often travel to the towns. Oftentimes on pilgrimages also you would cross the towns, and similarly जब भी war या फिर कोई calamity आती थी, the people from the town would often run away to the village. And reverse trade भी होता था, जैसे village से सामान आप टाउन में बेचने जाते थे, वैसे ही नई नई चीज़ें जो विलेजेस में अवेलेबल ना हो वो उसकी बिक्री टाउन्स के थ्रू होती थी. पीपल फ्रॉम द टाउन्स विद मर्चेंट्स फ्रॉम द टाउन्स would go to villages and sell those goods. 16th 17th centuries में the towns that were built by the Mughals, they were famous for the grandiose architecture that populated them, the people that populated them. एक urban elite वहाँ पे होते थे, the culture that created. The more famous of these towns were Delhi, Agra and Lahore. यहाँ पे आपके मनसबदार्स भी collected होते थे, जागीरदार्स भी collected होते थे. This is where this was like the hub of imperial administration and activity. यहाँ से ही जो emperor के directions होते थे, they would flow out to the entire to his kingdom. Now wherever the urban elite were located, be it the ruler himself or even his important nobles and officers, that itself created a lot of employment opportunity because artisans would create exquisite handicrafts for them. और भी चीज़ें होती थी, entertainment होता था वहाँ पे, education होती थी. Towns में generally army would also be located, so the inflow of प्रोड्यूस वुड बी देयर. अब जैसे कैपिटल है, कैपिटल में आपकी ट्रेजरी भी लोकेटेड है एंड माइनर ट्रेजरीज वुड बी देयर विद इंडिविजुअल मनसबदार्स ऑल्सो वेयर दे वुड कलेक्ट देयर टैक्सेस एंड देन सेंड इट टू द कैपिटल. एंड बिकॉज द कैपिटल हैड द मेजर ट्रेजरी, सो दैट meant that revenue was constantly flowing in. So not only was the town fortified, but also the place where the emperor himself lived, that was also heavily fortified. और उसका जो entrance और exit points होते थे, they would be clearly watched over. वहाँ पे proper regulation होती थी, कौन कब आया, कौन कब गया, कौन कितने बार आया, so on and so forth. In addition to holding the ruling elites, these towns also held proper gardens, bazaars, colleges, places of education, mosques, other places of worship, and of course even grand bungalows of the ruling elite. लेकिन साउथ इंडिया में फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन मदुरई एंड इन कांचीपुरम द प्रिंसिपल फोकस ऑफ द सिटी वॉज नॉट द रूलर बट द टेम्पल. So these were in a way pilgrimage towns, but these towns were also known for their commercial activity क्योंकि जब भी कोई religious festival होता था तो उसी के साथ साथ आपकी trading activity भी होती थी क्योंकि आपका fair भी लगता था. Whoever the ruler was, generally that person was identified as the chief patron of the main temple, and it would be his duty to build temples, to maintain them. North may be, south may be, your proximity to the ruling elite defined your social status, and this was very rigid in the medieval age. Your social status was very important because that determined not only your success but then the success of your generations. इतना fluid नहीं होता था, but there were cases where people from a lower social status have risen to a higher social status, and then to maintain this social structure there was an officer called the Kotwal. He would maintain the social structure throughout the towns, and it was also his responsibility to take care that everything is happening the way that it should. So in a way वो internal matters को भी देखते थे और वो somewhat policing activities की भी ध्यान रखते थे. लेकिन 18th century onwards आप ये थोड़ा जो towns का structure था, you see that changing. Towns that were of prominence during the Mughal era slowly fell into decline because that corresponded with the decline of the Mughal power itself. Regional powers ज़्यादा strengthen हो गए, तो फिर center से artisans and merchants, they also went to these regional powers to gain employment or patronage. And because there was constant warfare between these smaller principalities of sorts, so this meant that mercenaries and the armed forces were also employed. And these regional centers that gained a lot of prominence during this time were Lucknow, Hyderabad, Seringapatam, Pune, Nagpur, Vadodara and Thanjavur. Some nobles from the Mughal court took this as an opportunity to form their own centers of power, which were very localized. So these were the kasbas or the ganj, And generally, although there was a decentralization, some places were more affected by this disintegrating of towns, whereas other places flourished. इसी time पे there were changes in the networks of trade as well, and this can be seen when the European commercial companies had set up their base in different places during the early Mughal era. Portuguese, they set up their base at Panaji, which is in Goa, in 1510. The Dutch in Masulipatam in 1605. The British in Madras in 1639. And the French in Pondicherry in 1673. So these sites where the European companies came and they established their economic centers, they also grew in character. What might have earlier been maybe a fishing town, or a fishing town with weaving activity, that flourished to become an economic center. And इसी के साथ साथ we can also see the power dynamics change. What was earlier a system where the land that you held or you commanded over gave you power, but here we can see that the trade that happened overseas, that is what gave the European centers their power. When international trade entered the Indian society at such a grand scale, that also played a very important role in how Indian society then functioned. And in addition to the forces of international trade, mercantilism also evolved, and then capitalism was then introduced into the Indian society, and that gave your Indian society a whole different structure. Mid 18th century onwards, you can see the decline in sites like Surat, Masulipatam and Dhaka, which were already flourishing commercial centers. But now, because the British English East India Company had, after the Battle of Plassey, which was in 1757, they gained the rights to economic activity in the subcontinent, and then the centers that they created then, which was Calcutta in Bengal, Madras, and then also Bombay. These centers then flourished into economic centers, but उसी के साथ साथ they also became the political and administrative centers from where the English East India Company then controlled virtually the entire subcontinent. And because these centers evolved and they flourished, it also drew in a lot of people who then came to these centers to look for employment opportunities.
The second topic is finding out about colonial cities. So, colonial rule was based on, generating enormous amount of data. So they used to keep having surveys done and data formulate करते रहते थे, because they were ruling a region, so they wanted to keep in records कि एरिया कैसा है, टोपोग्राफी कैसी है, रीजन लैंडस्केप कैसी है, मैपिंग करनी शुरू कर दी थी उन्होंने. मैपिंग वाज जस्ट नॉट डन फॉर प्लानिंग पर्पस कि जब वो टाउन प्लान कर रहे थे, बट ऑल्सो ट्रेडिंग, कमर्शियल एक्टिविटीज़ कैसे हम लोग विल गो अहेड विद दैट. So they would have surveys done, even had statistical data and reports, articles, generate करते रहते थे regarding a particular place. Town के maps would also give information about a particular river, a particular hill, कि हम यहाँ पे ट्रेड कैसे कर सकते हैं. अगर प्लानिंग करनी है तो कैसे फॉर्मुलेट करेंगे इस प्लानिंग को. डिफेंस पर्पस के लिए कैसा रहेगा, कि हाउ वुड वी हैव कैंटोनमेंट्स प्लान्ड, एंड ऑल्सो कि घाट्स कैसी हैं, गॉर्जेस कैसी हैं, कैन वी हैव कमर्शियल एक्टिविटीज़ टेकिंग प्लेस इन दिस पर्टिकुलर पार्ट ऑफ द टाउन, एंड टैक्सेशन कैसे करेंगे इस जगह को. तो हर एक चीज़ को ध्यान रखते हुए वो लोग ये सर्वेज इकट्ठा करते थे, मैपिंग करते थे. लेट 19th सेंचुरी से दे वांटेड टू एडमिनिस्टर एरियाज, तो फॉर दैट दे wanted money, so they raised money through annual taxation, that municipal taxation. And Indian representative elect किए गए थे इसी municipal corporation के अंदर, that will look after the water supply, sewer, road building, public health हो गया. And यही जो municipal corporations हैं, they started holding datas also and various surveys also, and they even today they hold those records of the colonial times कि उस टाइम पे कैसे सिस्टम कैसे चलता था. तो दे आर अभी भी they have those records with them. Mid 19th century से local censuses उन्होंने create करना शुरू कर दिया था and head counts करने शुरू कर दिए थे. The first census report of India, all India was done in 1872. उसके बाद से 1881 से every 10 years census बनाई जाती थी, reports बनाए जाते थे population को लेकर. But this information is not very valuable when it comes to urbanization of India, you know, because इसमें ambiguity बहुत होती है. जब हम इन reports को देते हैं तो it gives us an idea of hard data to, you know, look at the historical changes, whether it was the changes in the sex ratio or whether the health, deaths कितनी हुई थी उस टाइम पे, कितने birth हुए थे, caste क्या है, and it gives it creates an illusion of normalcy, a concreteness. Historians also, they find it very difficult to understand this whole census report because कई बार आपको misleading लगती हैं, exaggerated लगती हैं, कई जो इसमें reports में आपको आप जब करते हैं, tally करते हैं चीज़ें when it comes to caste related, health related, deaths related. Census operation was such कि जो social data था वो बहुत conveniently उसको statistical डाटा एंड पॉपुलेशन में कन्वर्ट कर दिया गया था. इट वॉज डन बाय द कमिश्नर्स टू, यू नो, क्लासीफाई पीपल ऑफ डिफरेंट ऑक्यूपेशंस. बट how do you classify them? Sometimes these occupations, there was ambiguity, there was not strict नहीं था, मतलब जैसे there were people who were in 2 occupations, right? So how will you justify that? ओवरलैप कर जाती थी. कुछ अगर ट्रेडर भी है तो वो एक फार्मर भी है, कुछ मैनुअल वर्कर भी है तो वो डिफरेंट कमर्शियल बार्बर भी है. तो ये एम्बिग्विटी बहुत थी क्योंकि मैनी टाइम्स देयर वर इंस्टेंसेस वेयर अ पर्सन was a trader and was a barber. What will you give, what tag will you give to that person? और अगर कोई ट्रेडर है या कल्टिवेटर तो उसको क्या बोलोगे, उसको किस ब्लॉक में जब आप सेंसस रिपोर्ट्स बना रहे हैं तो आप उसको किस ऑक्यूपेशन में डालेंगे. समटाइम्स दीज ऑक्यूपेशंस वर कास्ट रिलेटेड ऑल्सो, तो वो भी आप कैसे फॉर्मुलेट करोगे. तो इट वॉज नॉट वेरी क्लियर कट. मैनी टाइम्स पीपल वुड नॉट गिव इन्फॉर्मेशन अबाउट देयर ऑक्यूपेशन और अबाउट देम फैमिली मेम्बर्स. दे वर नॉट वेरी कॉर्डियल विद दीज census report officers, and many a times they were not willing to talk to them because they would always feel कि कहीं ये नए taxes लगाने तो नहीं आ गए हैं. Even in the rich families, upper caste families, they were unwilling to give any information. Women were not allowed to speak up or tell about their occupation or tell about themselves because they were supposed to be behind the closed doors. तो उनको भी बात नहीं करने देते थे census officers के साथ. Many times when the population, like people had 2 occupations, they would always tell about the occupation that was higher in the hierarchy, you know. For example, they were hawkers in some season and manual workers in other season. It all depended on the season as well. Subcontinent में seasonal wise भी आपकी occupations होती थी पहले. तो बट वो सेंसस एन्यूमरेटर्स को बताते थे कि जी वी आर ट्रेडर्स बिकॉज दे ऑलवेज कंसिडर्ड ट्रेडिंग एज अ मच बेटर टास्क एंड नॉट लेबरर्स, यू नो. दे वुड नॉट कंसिडर देमसेल्व्स एज लेबरर्स. सो दिस इज हाउ दे ओवरलैपिंग, यू नो, ऑक्यूपेशंस क्रिएटेड अ प्रॉब्लम. फिगर्स ऑफ मोर्टेलिटी एंड डिजीजेज उसमें भी बहुत आपको कन्फ्यूजन रहता है. मतलब इट्स नॉट वेरी क्लियर कट. डेथ्स वर नॉट ऑल डेथ्स वर रिपोर्टेड. इलनेस वॉज नॉट रिपोर्टेड. मैनी टाइम्स द इलनेस वॉज treated by not a licensed doctors. तो आपके पास वो रिपोर्ट में नहीं आएगा कि आज इस जगह से इस इंसान की मौत हो गई या इतनी पॉपुलेशन से इतनी पॉपुलेशन कम हो गई. मतलब आपको हेड काउंट नहीं रहता है. दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द मेन रीजन्स वाई हिस्टोरियंस have to be very cautious when they're reading these census reports. But yes, these reports, especially that has been there with the municipal corporations, they do give us an insight of how the cities were and how the occupation was in those cities as compared to the information that we have of the pre-colonial times. After the 1800s, urbanization in India was very sluggish. 1800 से अगर 19th century से अगर first 2 decades of the 20th century में देखेंगे तो urbanization था as a whole in the subcontinent was very slow. It was not very rapid. Not every town, there was variations when it comes to urbanization, regional wise, region to region, and smaller towns, they took time to urbanize as compared to Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. they grew rapidly. But the growth of these three cities, when it comes to administratively or it comes to commercial way, it grew at the expense of other of the existing urban centers. As the hub of the colonial economy, they functioned as collection depots. तो यहाँ से रॉ मटेरियल जाते थे इंग्लैंड में, और इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के बाद थोड़ा रिवर्स हो गया. वहाँ से इंग्लैंड से रॉ मैन्युफैक्चर गुड्स यहाँ इंपोर्ट होने लग गए, एंड कुछ रॉ मटेरियल यहाँ से एक्सपोर्ट भी होने लग गए थे. एंड द नेचर ऑफ दीज स्प्रॉलिंग सिटीज़ व्हेन इट कम्स टू कमर्शियल एक्टिविटीज़, जब इनका हम देखते हैं तो दे वर शार्पली डिफ्रेंशिएटेड विद the old traditional urban centers that were there in the pre-colonial times. So उन centers को तो लोग भूल ही गए थे, ब्रिटिश भी भूल गए थे. They were just there as traditional centers. But जब इन तीन cities को बहुत ब्रिटिशर्स ने तवज्जो दी थी, काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंस दी थी. इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ रेलवेज इन 1853 became a game changer. जो पहले ट्रेडिशनल टाउन्स थे दैट वर सिचुएटेड इन द ओल्डर रूट्स, जो रिवर रूट थी, वहाँ से इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी शिफ्ट होते होते जहाँ रेलवेज बननी शुरू हो गई थी वहाँ पहुँच गई. रेलवे स्टेशंस बिकेम एक्सचेंज पॉइंट्स फॉर द रॉ मटेरियल्स. एंड पहले फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे मिर्ज़ापुर वाज वन ऑफ दी सेंटर्स दैट जहाँ पे गैंजेस पे, जहाँ पे डेक्कन से जब रॉ मटेरियल आता था स्पेशली कॉटन, तो वहाँ पे एक्सचेंज होता था. वो उसकी इंपॉर्टेंस डिक्लाइन हो गई, और वो जो रेल रूट लाइन जो बॉम्बे तक बननी शुरू हो गई, तो बॉम्बे की तरफ रॉ मटेरियल्स पहुँचने शुरू हो गए थे. तो जितने पुराने वही एज वी हैव टोल्ड यू सिटीज़ थी, टाउन्स थी, रेलवे के आने के बाद भी उनकी इंपॉर्टेंस डिमिनिश होने लग गई थी. रेलवे एक्सपेंशन ऑफ रेलवे के साथ रेलवे वर्कशॉप्स भी एक्सपैंड होने लग गई थी. यू हैड रेलवे कॉलोनीज वर ऑल्सो एस्टैब्लिश्ड. सम ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट रेलवे कॉलोनीज वर बरेली, वॉल्टेयर एंड जमालपुर.
Next topic asks us, what were these new towns like? Now, by the 18th century, as we've already discussed, Madras, Calcutta and Bombay had grown to be new and very important commercial centers, because this is where the English East India Company held sway. So these were the port cities where they established themselves. Now, from these economic port towns, of course, trade was a heavy activity. But because these became such important centers of trade and commerce, even the factories were also established here, or the mercantile offices were also established here. Now, before the British gained complete monopoly over the Indian subcontinent, or over majority of the Indian subcontinent, other European countries were also in competition with each other as also with the British. So places where the European companies had established themselves, they had to also be fortified. So if we talk about these three commercial centers particularly for the British, Madras में Fort St. George था, कैलकटा में फोर्ट विलियम था, और मुंबई में जो फोर्ट था इट वाज जस्ट कॉल्ड द फोर्ट. एंड दीज एरियाज मार्क्ड आउट वेयर द ब्रिटिश लिव्ड, एंड they felt that defense was a primary concern for themselves against the locals as well as other European their other European counterparts who were competition. So the forts were built, and oftentimes on the outside periphery of these ports is where the rich Indian merchants would then build up their own residences. So what this basically points towards is that from the very beginning, when जब ब्रिटिश का इंडिया से जो ताल्लुकात था वो कॉलोनियल गवर्नमेंट नहीं था, लेकिन वो अभी भी ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के थ्रू ही काम कर रहा था बिफोर ब्रिटिश फॉर्मली annexed almost India. Since then itself there was a segregation between the British and the Indians. This is what was then later demarcated as the white town and the black town, and of course they had racial undertones. And once India was established as a proper colony, these racial undertones only grew.
So when you go to Pondicherry, you will, if anyone has been there, you will find you find a white town and a black town. So that segregation is there. This area is completely open, and you have those old colonial structures, French structures, and then you have the black town where inhabitants live mostly, and they're more cramped up.
Yeah.
So that you can still see it now. Everybody lives
Yeah.
in White Town and everybody
Yeah,
lives in
yeah.
Black Town. That is not there, but you will see the
But
difference.
still, I think there is that economic divide is still there. White
bit,
Town will be
a bit,
occupied
yes.
by the rich,
Yeah.
whereas the Black Town will be
You
occupied
also
by
have the government structures in the White Towns.
yeah, because that was the place of governance, which we will discuss later on. But this White Town and Black Town, the segregation was not unique to India. That was something that you would find in most colonies. This wherever there were racial undertones throughout Asia and Africa. You can't really you can't discredit it. And black towns can be found wherever colonialism had its way. Mid 19th century में when the network of railways also expanded, this opened the hinterland to these main trading ports or these commercial cities. Now what this did was it made the transport of raw materials to and the finished product from the commercial centers more easy, but then this also opened up opportunities for people to then also easily flock to these urban centers to look for employment, because cheap labor then was very easily available, and because cheap labor was so easily available, factories were also then set up. The factories as we know them today, the modern factories, the modernization of industry in a way was then set up. 1850s say cotton mills were then established in Bombay, but this was done by rich Indian merchants, whereas Calcutta mein, on the outskirts of Calcutta, jute factories were then set up by the British. Lekin just because Calcutta, Madras and Bombay became economic capitals, like Bombay was the economic capital of colonial India, but just because they thrived as economic centers and factories were set up, this does not necessarily mean that these towns also took on an industrial nature. The main occupation of the people that occupied these centers was not for industrial work. They were mostly in the tertiary sector. इंडिया में जो इंडस्ट्रियल सेंटर्स थे वो सिर्फ दो थे. पहला था कानपुर which specialized in leather, woolen and cotton, and the next was Jamshedpur, which was known for its steel. Now when we talk about industrial cities and industrial centers, industry brought on the rise of industrialization is what gave British that power of modernization and then development. But if you're talking about industries, why did India also not then benefit from that? This is because the racial undertones or the racial policing did not really let India thrive in its industries, because see again, industries that were started in India were not meant to benefit India, they were meant to benefit Britain. So India did not really, till the time the British were there, they did not really gain from from the newly established industries or the modern industries. And even with the urban capitals that we're talking about, whether it be Calcutta or Madras or Bombay, they were economic centers. But even though they were dealing with such great numbers of produce coming in, going out, they also did not really thrive. Unki economic well-being itni great nahi thi. So even though they were economic capitals, the population that was inhabiting these cities did not really flourish because of those economies. Yes, they were very populated, they were very densely populated, but this did not transfer to the economics of these towns. अब ये जो colonial cities हैं, they reflected or they were built basically for the new mercantile community that had come from Europe, and then it also reflected their own tastes and their own culture. These cities then grew to accommodate their new masters, and Indians also, although in some places you see Indian nobles or Indian elites losing their power, but some were able to adapt and they also amassed a lot of power. Indians may say people who were merchants, who were interpreters, who were traders, they also prospered. So from land trading routes, trading ports or sites near rivers and seas started to gain a lot of prominence, because see, now trade was now directly connected to and from Europe and Britain in particular. यहाँ पे रिवर फ्रंट्स में या फिर सी पोर्ट्स में आपके घाट्स बनने शुरू हो गए, डॉक्स बनने शुरू हो गए. यहीं पे आपके गोडाउन्स भी बनते थे, आपकी थोड़ी बहुत फैक्ट्रीज बनती थी. Insurance companies who would insure your product when it is traveling overseas, they also came up. यहीं पे आपको mercantile offices और transport depot भी मिलते हैं. Banking establishments along with insurance establishments also came up along these docks and these ghats. अब इनसे आप थोड़ा सा अगर आप और इनलैंड जाएंगे तो वहाँ पे आपको और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बिल्डिंग्स मिलती in a colonial city. That is where that was the house of the administrative office of the colonial government. So the Writers' Building, which is in Calcutta, that is one prime example of such a building. When the English gained their dominance and their monopoly over India, you could see जो periphery था इनके forts में, उसी के आसपास they started building palatial accommodations for themselves. Bungalows were created. Sometimes garden houses were also created with beautiful gardens. And there was a clear intention to segregate the Europeans from the Indians. This can be seen in racially exclusive clubs and theatres, and that was how it was. That segregation then came up, and then it just kept getting stronger. Now, if you think that this divide was just between the Europeans and the Indians, you are mistaken. Among the Indians also there was division, and this was primarily caste based, to chalo tha hi, but this particular one was based on economy. The rich merchants or the rich class, they in the black towns, they amassed a lot of property and they built their own bungalows to sort of compete, or imitate or to compete with their British masters, and they would try everything to imitate them. So they would try to be like them, to dress like them, to talk like them.
Parties,
they would throw lavish parties during festivals, and also to maintain their position in society, कि लोगों को ऐसा ना लगे कि ये सिर्फ ब्रिटिश को ही केटर कर रहे हैं. They would patronize religious festivals, they would build temples, and this is how they maintained their status in society, and they dabbled between these two worlds.
Yeah, so they wanted to be Goda Sahab.
Or they were like Hannah Montana, making the best of both worlds. On the other side, the labouring poor, they made do by providing services to their European lords as well as the rich Indians. They would provide a variety of services, whether it be palanquin bearers or cooks, or even as labour for working at the docks. So where the rich Indians, they would live in their own bungalows that they fashioned after the British, even if it had its own distinct Indian architectural element. The labouring poor, on the other hand, lived in makeshift huts. 1857 में जब revolt हुआ, उसके बाद भी urban planning काफ़ी change हुई, because now the European settlements, they had this fear of rebellion, and they had this fear of the natives, and this feeling that the European settlement has to be better protected and well guarded. This only led to further segregation. So pasture lands and agricultural lands, they were cleared up, and new settlements were created, and these were called the civil lines. Delhi may be here, and civil lines are there in other cities as well. The British would occupy the civil lines, they would go and live there, and in addition to the civil lines, cantonments were also created, and these you can find all over the country. And now it is primarily an army settlement, and now the Indian Army is also occupying many of those, in fact all of those old cantonments. So while the civil lines were completely separated from other Indian towns, cantonments were places where the Indian troops were also stationed, and they were created as safe havens for Europeans, but they were also close to the native population. So they were not very far away from the native residents of the subcontinent. Cantonments में आपको broad streets और bungalows with beautiful gardens, barracks, parade ground और एक church आपको मिलता ही मिलता है. Not only were the cantonments supposed to be a safe space for the Europeans, but they were also supposed to be a prime example of how European urban planning should look like. For the British, जो black towns थे, they did not just symbolize chaos and anarchy, but also filth and disease. So that was also this perception that they had कि the black towns are so clustered, वहाँ से disease फैलती है, and that is also something that added to that separation between the white towns and the black towns. And initially, the Europeans or the British, they were primarily concerned with the sanitation practices only of the white towns. So development only of the white towns, upkeep only of the white towns. But जब कॉलरा और का जो पैंडेमिक शुरू हुआ था, उसके बाद एक वो ना क्रेज टाइप हो गया था कि ब्लैक टाउन से डिजीज़ वाइट टाउन को मतलब वहाँ पे स्प्रेड हो जाएगा. इवन इफ देर इज़ नो डायरेक्ट कॉन्टैक्ट, इट विल जस्ट स्प्रेड. So that is how then they also started the sanitation drive in the black towns. 1860s or 1870s say you can see stringent measures or stringent administrative measures that they took to to sanitize the black towns, to introduce piped water and also drainage to the black towns, and then they overlooked the construction because उनका एक वो डर था कि यार disease हमको ना लग जाए black town से.
I have a thing to say. I saw this article where the planning of these European countries or cities like Paris, it was even in the 1800s, it was terrible. People were shitting outside their own houses, peeing outside their own houses. They would shit in a pot and throw it on the road. So तब नहीं फैलेगा ना कॉलरा, और तब नहीं फैलेंगे बीमारियां.
And I think it is very interesting to note that all these pandemic type diseases were introduced to the world by Europeans in the first place. So I mean, you can't introduce a disease and then say अरे हमको लगना जाए. But that is how it was back in the day. We can only comment on it, and then we can also learn from it how things progressed, how there was एक दोगलापन था, and that is why the colonial governments world over face a lot of criticism for their duality in the nature. What was acceptable to them at home was not acceptable in their colonies. Alternatively, what the progresses that they made in their home country were not introduced to the colonies. And this is something that is an ongoing topic, and उसके बारे में चर्चा होती रहेगी. But हम आगे मूव करते हैं sanitation practices में. Through these measures, sanitary vigilance also became a way for the Europeans to extract control over Indians. And I think it is also interesting to note that these black towns were created by the British, by the Europeans, and this overpopulation that happened was because they did not really regulate how these towns grew. And so I think it's a little not fair how this thing sort of this narrative of the black town being unsanitary and dirty and all that, when the majority of people were just not living there because they wanted to, but economic activity hai to you will live. How cantonments are a unique feature to colonial urban town planning, वैसे ही hill stations were also a very unique feature. Hill stations primarily were a tactical need, because that is where the army was stationed. For instance, Shimla the hill station at Shimla, that was created because of the Gorkha War, which lasted between 1815 and 1816. माउंट आबू में तब इंटरेस्ट डेवलप हुआ जब 1818 में एंग्लो मराठा वॉर हो रहा था, एंड दार्जिलिंग में इंटरेस्ट तब डेवलप हुआ व्हेन इट वाज टेकन अवे फ्रॉम द किंगडम ऑफ सिक्किम in 1835. So hill stations became an important military center to station troops to look over what the enemy was doing to defend your borders, to attack your neighboring enemies. अब hill stations है तो वहाँ पे ठंडक भी होगी, and this cold climate of the hill stations was also seen as an advantage by the British, because they associated hot temperatures with disease, and उस time पे there was this fear of cholera and malaria. So to escape that also, they felt that it was better to escape to the hill stations. They felt that it was better to station their soldiers at hill stations because it was just generally better for the health. And because the army was present in such huge numbers, these hill stations developed their own cantonment-like character. And because of this belief that cold climate helped with your well-being, hill stations also acted as sanitariums, and soldiers were then sent there to recuperate. Now, when you look at Britain, it is a cold country, and the British in India, they felt at home at the hill stations, and then this also created this practice of moving to the hill stations, particularly during the summer months, which was started by viceroys to move to the hill stations during summer months, because that is where they felt more like home. The temperature was more like home. 1864 में Viceroy John Lawrence, he moved his office formally to Shimla, and then that also started a practice of moving to the hill stations during the summer months. Shimla also became the residence of the official residence of the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army. अब इन hill stations में जो planning थी, वहाँ पे the British wanted to replicate the environment from their homes. So they built their houses to resonate with their architecture back in Britain. So standalone villas were built, and individual cottages with gardens were built. The Anglican Church was also there, along with the educational institutions, and then they just further strengthened British ideals. Along with this, there were also social practices that were then, practiced by the British, whether it be picnics or holding fairs and fetes, social calls, teas, even races, theatre jana, movie dekhna. All these became, distinct practices that were associated with the colonial officers. लेकिन जब railways का introduction हुआ, when it spread even to the hill stations, that opened the hill stations to the Indian public as well. So rich elites or rich merchants would also then go to the hill stations, and they would construct their houses, and they would try to maintain closeness to the Europeans and to the British officers. But hill stations also became very important for colonial economy, especially when tea plantations and coffee plantations were introduced in the area. Now, when these plantations were introduced, of course, you also need a working labor force to work the lands. And so this also then opened up the hill station to the working class, who then flocked to these places for employment opportunities. इसमें basically जो मेरे को सुकून मिलती है इस बात की is that the hill stations, which were supposed to be this safe haven for the British, no longer remained that, because now it was open to the Indian public, not just the upper class Indians or middle class Indians or rich Indians, but also to the working class. So कितना भागोगे? In these new cities and in these new towns, there was a very weird kind of a social structure. पहले जो towns थे, cities थे, of course there were rich and poor. ऐसा नहीं है कि towns में आपको गरीब लोग नहीं मिलेंगे, या फिर village में आपको वो डिफरेंस नहीं दिखेगा, लेकिन एक वो देयर वाज सम फॉर्म ऑफ यूनिफॉर्मिटी. But in these modern towns, the difference between the rich and the poor, or the haves and the have-nots, was very drastic. इसी के साथ साथ there were new transportation modes. Horse-drawn carriages भी थे, फिर trams भी थे, railways तो थे ही, but then railways were more about long distance travel, but then short distance travel also you had a lot of variety. And what this meant specifically for the rich people was that you did not necessarily have to work and live in the same space, so you could choose to live at a little distance. So if the towns were hugely populated, you did not have to live there if you had the means to travel to a less populated space, maybe at the outskirts of the town. Now this commute or this traveling to and from work also was a new thing for Indians at the time. कि यार ये तो कुछ नया ही है. यहाँ जा रहे हो आप अपनी घोड़ा गाड़ी में काम करने जा रहे हो, फिर वापस आप शाम को घर आ रहे हो. These were new experiences. But अगर एक sense of familiarity थी पुराने towns के साथ जो नए towns में नहीं थी, लेकिन यहाँ पे भी there were new structures that were developing. Now you were not limited to there were more opportunities for people to work at. So because there was a need for clerks and teachers, interpreters, middlemen, that gave rise to a middle class. So from a lower strata you could rise up, and एक वो fluidity भी थी, and then वो जो एक social structure था पुराने towns में, that was then replaced with a new structure which was created by public parks and theatres, and much later even with cinema halls. Some of these spaces were created by Indians for Indians, and so that also gave rise to a new form of social entertainment or social well-being or social interaction. So because there were new employment opportunities, जैसे हमने बोला, teachers थे, clerks थे, lawyers थे, engineers थे, accountants थे, that also warranted that this section of society needed a different form of education, Western education. With access to schools and colleges and libraries, people also then began to form their own thoughts on society, and because they were well versed, they would hold arguments and debates, and they would publish newsletters with what they believed in. And then they also started questioning social norms. But because social customs and social norms were now being questioned, this did not mean that social change was also very quick to happen. Cities mein women still had a certain level of freedom. They had the opportunity or to publish their own thoughts as their journals or autobiographies, but many people still resented this new development of power that women were now gaining with the urbanization. They felt threatened by it in a way, because it challenged your old societal norms, your old patriarchal norms, where the woman was only supposed to cater to the house, not step out of the house at all. But all of a sudden now she has employment opportunities outside. She can work as a teacher, she can work as an accountant, because there is a need for the workforce, and she's walking मतलब कंधे से कंधा मिला के अगर काम करने की बात हो रही है, तो there is a change. But then change always is scary. I mean, honestly, in colonial India and now as a democratic country, the biggest democracy in the world, India, there's not that great a difference between how women are still perceived. There is still that notion of fear when the woman steps out. Conservatives felt that a woman being educated would turn the world upside down, and this is a sentiment that you can still find echoing in many cases. Even reformers, when they supported women's education, they saw the primary role of a woman as a mother or as a wife, primarily as a domestic being. Time laga, over time women entered or they stepped out from the domestic field and they entered the workforce as factory workers or as teachers, even artists, and that also brought about a lot of change. And when you look at social structure, even now it is preached कि when the woman of the house is also working, that economically it opens your house to a lot. If your daughter and your mother and your sisters, if they are educated, that just brings prosperity to your own household. So we have of course moved aeons, but then there is still, we have a lot more progress yet to achieve. Even though women were occupying a significant portion of the workforce, they were still objects of censure, which is something that is still true. You will still try to censor a woman's clothing, her ideas, her speech, her way of being. वहाँ से हम ज़्यादा अभी तक दूर हटे नहीं हैं. वो अभी भी तब भी चलता था, अब भी चलता है. Colonial cities में there was a new section of the society, and these were the laboring poor or the working class. Now oftentimes these they were migrant workers who migrated from their town of origin, oftentimes leaving their family behind in search for better employment opportunities, in search for a better way of life, or sometimes just for something new to start afresh. For the working poor or for the working class and the laboring poor, employment opportunities were scarce because when you traveled, you did not travel with a guaranteed job. So finding a place of accommodation was also a gamble. Looking for food was expensive. But even so, they also created a social atmosphere. And एक urban life इनके साथ भी it took on a new life. These people, they participated in social activities, in festivals, in theatres, in plays, and that created like a very vibrant social life, not just for them but for other inhabitants of the city.
The next topic is segregation, town planning and architecture. We have Madras, Calcutta and Bombay. Madras, Calcutta and Bombay, they were the largest cities in the colonial India. The company had first set up its trading activity ka port in the west coast of the subcontinent with Surat. Surat was a well-established trading port even in the pre-colonial times. Soon, in search of textiles and raw materials, they shifted towards the eastern coast and they had set up a trading post at Madraspattam, which was originally known as Chennai Pattanam. They got this area from Telugu-speaking feudal lord Nayaks, and they had in fact helped them and encouraged them in creating this area as a major trading setup. Rivalry with the French East India Company gave this opportunity to the English East India Company to fortify Madras and give political and administrative functions to their people. And when the French were defeated in 1761, this gave them more opportunity to fortify Madras and make it into a strong urban center. It was in this area where the British showed the superiority, and you could see the subordination of the Indian merchant class. Fort St. George became the nucleus of the White Town. Who lived within the White Town was also discussed, and they discussed who was going to live there. Whites were, and who could go to and fro from that particular town. Whites were only allowed to live within the white towns, though Portuguese, Dutch and other European people were allowed because they were Christians and they were whites. Europeans were not allowed to marry Indians, and even they had set up their own judicial system, and that mostly favored the whites. Though Europeans were minorities, but still the planning and everything of Madras all depended on their convenience. The black town was outside the white town, and they were settled in straight lines. That was the common feature. But in the mid 1700s, they were relocated. The whole area was wiped off for security reasons, and they were given region in the northern side of Madras. The new black town tha, that resembled how the older traditional Indian towns were. The settlement, around the temples, and caste-based neighborhoods also started to coexist. You had areas designated according to your profession. Like Chintadripet was an area where weavers were settled. Washerman Pet were the areas where the bleachers of cloth were settled. Then you had Royapuram, where Christian boatmen were settled and they worked for the company. Then there were a community of people called Dubhashes, and they spoke the native language and they spoke English. So they acted as intermediaries between people and the British, and they were strong merchants also. They acted as merchants. They were very powerful. They became powerful because they had that influence over people, so they grew in wealth. They also did give patronages in the form of charities to temples, and that is how they were revered by the people also, because they were patronizing temples. They also gave charities to people. So they had a dual. They were merchants. They knew the language, English language, and they knew the native language. So they had a plus point. Initially, jobs in the company, they were monopolized by the Vellalars. They were the rural caste who took advantage of the new opportunities, but slowly and steadily Brahmins also competing for such opportunities, especially in the field of administration. Telugu Komatis were a powerful commercial group that controlled the grain trade in the city. Gujarati bankers had also been present since the 18th century. Parayars and Vaniyars formed the labouring poor. The Nawab of Arcot settled in nearby Triplicane, which became the nucleus of a substantial Muslim settlement, and Mylapore and Triplicane were earlier Hindu religious centers that supported a large group of Brahmins. Santhome, with its cathedral, was the center for Roman Catholics. Thus, Madras, when it incorporated people of vast areas and with different castes and different culture and different occupations, so that in a way that is why there was this expanse in Madras, because it was incorporating people of different genres, people who had different occupation, people belonging to different backgrounds. And also because the colonial government was there, so that was giving opportunities, so people also started flocking towards that area. As the British consolidated their power, many resident Europeans started moving out from the fort area. Garden houses came to be established, especially in the two arteries road. एक उनका Mount Road होता था and Punamali Road होता था. Wealthy Indians too started to live like the English or the Europeans. And slowly and steadily, because they had money, they had the wealth, they could afford such big houses, they could afford areas. जो village के poor थे, they also shifted to areas that were close to their work. Or slowly and steadily, the villages also started to get accommodated in the city. So एक रूरल अर्बन स्क्वायर बन गया था मद्रास के अंदर. जैसे इन जनरल ऑल्सो अभी हम सिटीज़ देखें तो सिटीज़ में सिर्फ आपको अर्बन एरियाज़ नहीं देखेंगे, या वो जो हम अर्बन जो हमारे दिमाग में जो आइडिया है, यू विल ऑल्सो फाइंड सर्टन रूरल बेल्ट्स, एंड जिसको हम रूरल अर्बन एरियाज़ बोलते हैं. जैसे दिल्ली के अंदर भी बहुत हैं, आपको खिड़की विलेज दिख जाएगी, आपको कोटला दिख जाएगा, आपको यू हैव सर्टन पार्ट्स इन मेहरौली. सो दीज आर दोज रूरल अर्बन स्ट्रेचेस. जब एक कॉलोनियल टाउन की प्लानिंग होती है तो वो पूरा एक लेआउट बनता है. आप एक प्रॉपर प्लानिंग करते हो कि अर्बन स्पेसेस में कैसे होना चाहिए, हाउ विल स्टेट how will the administration setup supposed to be, how will the state dominate these urban spaces. And one important factor of these town planning was the defense, कि defense कैसे होगा. जैसे कि बंगाल के initial period में, जब बंगाल में they had established their fort, so Calcutta was attacked by the Nawab of Bengal, Sirajuddola, in the 1700s, and the fort that the British had established, and जहाँ पे वो अपने डिपो में अपने material रखते थे, that area was attacked. The British were reluctant in agreeing that the Nawab was a sovereign, and they were reluctant in paying custom duties or any of the taxes which the Nawab demanded. So that is one of the reasons that he had attacked Calcutta and the fort area. In 1757, Sirajuddaula was defeated in the Battle of Plassey. So उसके बाद they had to construct a new fort. So the new fort that was constructed, it was much bigger and it was much stronger, so that nobody could attack. Calcutta had grown from 3 villages: Sultanati, Kolkata and Govindpur. So गोविंदापुर के जो सदर्न मोस्ट एरियाज में ब्रिटिशर्स ने जो वहाँ वीवर्स सेटल थे उनको मूव आउट करने के लिए बोल दिया. एंड अराउंड दिस न्यूली कंस्ट्रक्टेड फोर्ट विलियम they had left an open space which was called मैदान. ये मैदान इसलिए भी बनाया गया था because they wanted to have no obstruction. They wanted a clear view if an enemy is about to attack them. So they will have a clear picture कि कहाँ से attack हो रहा है, so that they can also they can protect their fort. और जब उनको लगा कि now that we are permanent here, now that there is no obstruction, so in the periphery areas around the Maidan, they started constructing residences. And this still exists, and this is that space, the first instance of town planning in Calcutta. In 1798, Lord Wellesley was the Governor General, so he had constructed a palace and a governor house for himself. So to show his power and prestige that, we have arrived. And but he was also concerned about the town where the inhabitants were settled, because he was concerned that that area is dirty, there's vegetation and it's poor, it's smelly, and they were really concerned about the stagnant water and the living condition, because they always believed that this will bring diseases. This is the reason for the spread of diseases. And also they were very skeptical of the tropical environment. They were very, it was seen as unhealthy. So creating open spaces in the city was very important, because अगर आप open spaces बनाएंगे तो diseases का फैलने का जो that chances है वो कम हो जाती हैं. So he wrote a minute in 1803 asking for the town planning to take place, and it was a setup where people, the officers, a team of committee was set up to decide on the town planning. जितने भी बाजार थे, घाट्स थे, burial grounds थे, वो remove कर दिए गए थे. Notion of public health became very important. They wanted that the area, the surroundings should be clean enough so that there is no diseases, there are open spaces. Mostly the concern was for themselves and not the people.
I think I want to reiterate the fact that these urban centers that were created because of colonial activity, because of lack of planning or lack of employment opportunities elsewhere, also played a very big role in overpopulation and just this clustering of people in a small space.
But after Wellesley left, the town planning was passed on to the Lottery Committee in 1817, and the Lottery Committee was basically set up for the town planning, and it was done with the help of the funds that were raised through lottery, because they believed that it was a public duty to in town planning and not that of the government. So the lottery was raised through the public's money. So the Lottery Committee, they commissioned a new map as to have an idea of how the town planning would take place. पहले तो उन्होंने road construct करनी शुरू कर दी in the areas where the inhabitants were there. So they started also, uprooting people from various areas, and जो रिवर साइड इंक्रोचमेंट्स थी वहाँ से भी लोगों के हट्स उठा के लोगों को बिल्कुल ही आउटस्कर्ट्स में कर दिया कैलकाटा के. द थ्रेट ऑफ एपिडेमिक्स ऑल्सो गेव एन इम्पटस टू द आइडिया ऑफ टाउन प्लानिंग. 1817 में कॉलरा फैला, फिर 1896 में प्लेग फैलना शुरू हो गया. इट केम ऑन द सीन, and it is very scary because now also we are going through a pandemic. The main reason for the spread and the cause of the disease of plague has not been yet decided by the science, but at that point of time the basic understanding was that it was spread because of how the living condition of the people was the main reason for the spread of diseases. And such views were supported by many wealthy merchants, especially by Dwarkanath Tagore and Rustomji Kanwarji. They wanted that Calcutta should be healthy. Densely built up areas were seen as unhealthy and unhygienic. So they wanted, because also the sunlight would not enter and air ki circulation nahi hogi. So all the areas where weavers and potters and unemployed people were settled and they were cramped up. So they were asked to move out and they were further receded to the outskirts. And the main this thing was to have more open spaces. And then frequent fire, breaking out of fire was also a problem, because जितना भी closed environment में होगा आग लगने की भी बहुत संभावना होती है. सो दे ऑल्सो मेड द प्लानिंग वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट. एंड थैच रूफ्स, जो हट्स के जो रूफ्स होते थे, वो बैन कर दिया गया 1836 में, एंड टाइड रूफ्स को बोला गया इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए. By the late 19th century, official intervention when it comes to the town planning in Calcutta became very stringent. So now the government started to take initiative in the planning of the town, and this gave them an opportunity to wipe out more and more huts of the inhabitants. And they wanted to construct more areas for themselves at the expense of others. The initial जो existing divide था, white town versus black town, वो जो रेशियल डिवाइड था वो और रीइंफोर्स कर दिया गया जब हम रेशियल डिवाइड की बात करते हैं ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ हेल्दी एंड अनहेल्दी. पब्लिक प्रोटेस्ट शुरू हो गए थे अगेंस्ट द पॉलिसीज ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, एंड दिस समवेयर रीइंफोर्स द एंटी कॉलोनियल thoughts and mindset. The British became increasingly inclined in making these three imperial capitals more grand and more sophisticated, because this is how they would portray these cities in a more grand way to the outside world, because it will reflect what they thought how the city planning should be, how meticulous it should be, how in orderly it should be, and should show the Western ideas and aesthetics also. Similarly, जब हम बॉम्बे की बात करते हैं तो पहले तो आपके जो टाउन प्लानिंग है वो आपका स्ट्रक्चर बताता है. मॉन्यूमेंटल बिल्डिंग्स हो गई, गवर्नमेंट बिल्डिंग्स हो गई, ट्रेड वो कमर्शियल बिल्डिंग्स हो गई, डिपोज हो गए. दे वुड ऑल्सो शो समवेयर ग्रैंडियर, और डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ द ब्रिटिश कंस्ट्रक्टेड, whether on the religious lines or they wanted to portray Western ideas. But हम बॉम्बे की जब बात करते हैं तो बॉम्बे इनिशियली 7 आइलैंड्स था जिसको जोड़ दिया गया और एक मेन बिग सिटी बन गई थी. एंड इट बिकेम द कमर्शियल कैपिटल ऑफ द ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी. जितने भी एक्सपोर्ट्स इम्पोर्ट्स होते थे बॉम्बे के थ्रू ही होते थे, और बॉम्बे से ही ओपियम ट्रेड होती थी विद चाइना. सो जितने भी मर्चेंट्स थे और Indian merchants, Englishmen, they all indulged in the opium trade. Many of the middlemen merchants, they participated in this trade, and they kind of integrated the economy, the British economy, towards Malwa, Rajasthan, Sindh, जहाँ पे opium grow होता था. And क्योंकि profitable था ये, तो this led to the rise of Indian capitalist class, and it was of diverse. It was very diverse, the capitalist class. You had the Jews, you had the Parsis, you had the Konkani Muslims, Gujaratis, Baniyas, Bohras and Armenians. जब अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर हुई थी 1861 में, तो जो अमेरिका से कॉटन आता था वो आना बंद हो गया था. ये अपॉर्चुनिटी इंडियन मर्चेंट्स और मिडलमैन ने देखी, एंड जो इंडियन कॉटन थी वो एक्सपोर्ट होनी शुरू हो गई. इस पर कैनाल खुल गया 1869 में, और फिर इंडिया बॉम्बे वर्ल्ड मार्केट में आ गया था. बॉम्बे केम टू बी नोन एज अर्क प्रीमा इन इंडीज, मतलब द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट सिटी और द टाउन ऑफ इंडिया. एंड मिडलमैन एंड जो इंडियन मर्चेंट्स थे एंड अदर बॉम्बे गवर्नमेंट ऑल्सो, दे फाउंड दिस टू बी really opportunity. They found this a very great opportunity, to gain more profits. And especially the Indian merchants would invest their money in cotton mills, because this helped them gain more wealth. And they also started doing building activities and construction activities in Bombay to town planning में उनका भी हाथ था बॉम्बे की. बॉम्बे की इकोनॉमी ग्रो की थी मिड 19th सेंचुरी से, और उसकी वजह से एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन भी स्ट्रॉन्ग बनना शुरू हो गया, रेलवेज एक्सपैंड होनी शुरू हो गई यहाँ पर, a lot of money was used in construction and building activities, new buildings were constructed, and the style was European to please the rulers, and mostly they were Gothic in nature, when you look at the architecture of Bombay that was constructed during the British time. European style of architecture इसलिए भी import किया जाता था ताकि पहले तो अपना grandeur दिखाने के लिए, एक European style, एक familiarity होती थी, you will feel at home in an alien country. Secondly, it will show your own superiority. और third reason ये था कि दे वॉन्टेड टू हैव अ डिस्टिंक्शन कि यहाँ यूरोपियंस रहते हैं और यहाँ इंडियंस रहते हैं, तो वो आपको थोड़ा आर्किटेक्चर के थ्रू भी पता चलता है कि व्हेन दे विल हैव कॉलोनियल आर्किटेक्चर, यहाँ दिस इज़ फॉर द यूरोपियंस एंड द अदर इज़ फॉर द इनहैबिटेंट्स. But gradually, Indians also got really used to the European style of architecture, and somewhere, the Europeans also got used to the Indian way and they adopted the Indian ways. One such example is the government bungalows that were there. So, that were there all over India. And the word bungalow derives from the word bangla, which means a traditional thatched Bengali hut. The colonial bungalow was set on extensive ground, which ensured privacy and marked a distance from the Indian world around. The traditional pitched roof and surrounding veranda kept the bungalow very cool in the summer months. The compound had separate quarters for a retinue of domestic servants. So, जो bungalows थे civil lines में, they were very self-sufficient. They became an example of an enclave that was racially separated from the the inhabitants, and it was so self-sufficient that they didn't have to move out from it regularly to come in any contact with the Indians. तो मतलब वो ऐसे ही स्ट्रक्चर्स बनाते थे कि सब कुछ हो, you have your servants also, you have huge areas, तो हो सकता है they were growing vegetables also in that. There was no need to go to public spaces, so they were very happy in their own surroundings. Public buildings के लिए 3 architectural style यूज़ की गई थी. जो first 2 थी वो डायरेक्ट import थी from England. जो first था वो न्यू क्लासिकल कहलाता था. There were these structures with huge lofty pillars that somewhere remind you of the Roman architecture, of that Roman style of architecture, the grandeur of Roman architecture. Also, that was revived during the Renaissance period, European Renaissance period, and in a way, they could showcase themselves as to show themselves more grand, and they adopted this particular style of architecture in Bombay. And the Mediterranean origin of this style of architecture was also suitable for this tropical weather. तो 1833 में जो बॉम्बे में टाउन हॉल बना था वो इस architectural style के ऊपर बना था. Another group of commercial buildings were built somewhere in the 1860s after the cotton boom. तो वो elephant stone को जो Horniman Point बोलते हैं, because it was after a person who had helped the nationalists. तो ये भी एक architectural style था जो कि it was somewhat it was an architectural style inspired from models in Italy. It made innovative use of covered arcades at a ground level to shield the shopper and pedestrian from the fierce sun and rain of Bombay. जो थर्ड स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर है वो न्यू गॉथिक स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर है. दे हैड दोज पिच्ड रूफ्स एंड पॉइंटेड आर्चेस एंड रियली डेकोरेटिव. तो ये स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर जो गॉथिक स्टाइल है ये इंस्पायर हुआ है नदर्न यूरोप में जो कंस्ट्रक्शन हुई थी बिल्डिंग्स की मिडीवल टाइम के अंदर. 19th सेंचुरी में इंग्लैंड में ऐसा स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर यूज़ किया जा रहा था, गॉथिक स्टाइल. तो साथ ही साथ बॉम्बे में भी यही स्टाइल यूज़ किया जा रहा था. सेक्रेटेरिएट की बिल्डिंग, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ बॉम्बे एंड जो हाई कोर्ट की बिल्डिंग्स है दे portray the Gothic style of architecture. Many of the buildings that were constructed in Bombay, a lot of the Indian merchants had also put in their money. सो द यूनिवर्सिटी हॉल वॉज जो बना था वो कंवर्स जी ने दिया था. ही वॉज अ रिच पारसी मर्चेंट. यूनिवर्सिटी की जो लाइब्रेरी क्लॉक थी दैट वॉज द मनी वॉज पिच्ड इन बाय अ बैंकर कॉल्ड प्रेमचंद रॉयचंद एंड वो राजा भाई टार के नाम से जाना जाता है. इट वॉज आफ्टर हिज मदर एंड इंडियन मर्चेंट्स वर वेरी हैप्पी इन adapting to this such style of architecture because they wanted Bombay to have that Gothic style of architecture, to have that so that the Bombay would progress and have that modernity in style. So वो चाहते थे कि एक change आए architecture. Obviously because Bombay was just an island, so it was just a clean area that these people could experiment with. सबसे important example जो है Gothic style architecture का वो Victoria Terminus है जो कि एक railway station है. It is the headquarters of the Great Indian Peninsular Railway Company. It's now called the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus. Europeans invested a lot in when it comes to construction of the railways because they were very proud of themselves of getting it to the subcontinent. But also by the 20th century we see a new style of architecture. इसमें आप इट वॉज अ न्यू हाइब्रिड. इसमें आप इंडियन आर्किटेक्चर और यूरोपियन आर्किटेक्चर का मिलन देखते हैं. एंड ये जो आप हाइब्रिड देखते हैं इसको इंडो सार्सनिक आर्किटेक्चर कहते हैं. इंडो मीन्स हिंदू और सार्सनिक वॉज अ टर्म यूज्ड बाय द यूरोपियंस टू डेजिग्नेट Muslims. And this kind of architecture was inspired by the prevailing medieval architecture of jalis and arches, and you had the chhatris. So उससे इंस्पायर होकर ये आर्किटेक्चर का जन्म हुआ. By integrating Indian and European style of architecture, the British wanted to show that they are the real rulers. तो जो गेटवे ऑफ बॉम्बे है that was constructed on this principle. It's a Gujarati style of architecture when King George V and his wife Mary, when they came to India in 1911, तो वो कंस्ट्रक्ट किया गया था. द इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट जमशेदजी टाटा ने भी जो ताजमहल होटल कंस्ट्रक्ट किया है बॉम्बे में, दैट वाज आल्सो कंस्ट्रक्टेड ऑन दिस बेसिस ऑफ इंडो सार्सनिक आर्किटेक्चर. बट जो इंडियन लोकेलिटीज़ थी बॉम्बे की वो ट्रेडिशनल आर्किटेक्चर और ट्रेडिशनल स्टाइल पे ही बेस्ड थी. बिकॉज ये एरियाज़ में स्पेसेस नहीं थे तो यू हैड the coming of chawls where there was this multi-story building with single flat occupancy ये basis पे. So वहाँ पे families रहती थी and इससे neighborhood और solidarity का जन्म हुआ. Families, different families living in that locality, and this chawl was surrounded a courtyard, so that was the common area for the people to come and meet and celebrate various festivities or to just come and chat with each other.
The last topic is what buildings and architectural styles tell us. Now, throughout this chapter, we've seen how the urban town planning happened under the British, and also what buildings they constructed and the styles they used. Now, in architecture, and this is true for architecture throughout, that the architecture tells you about the styles prevalent at the time, the notions and the ideas that were prevalent at the time, but it also talks about the people that commissioned it, what they were wanting to do. Because if for instance, if I'm commissioning a building, maybe I'm taking into account what is prevalent right now, the architectural styles, but maybe I want to draw inspiration from an older time, or maybe I want to maybe I want to create something new entirely. So the person that commissions the building, the person that builds the building, they also have a lot of say in the architecture of a particular time. And it is through buildings, these huge buildings, we've seen it in previous chapters, we've seen it in previous themes as well. Huge buildings were often constructed by people in power, by the ruling elite, and those public buildings meant to showcase the power of the elites. आप कोई भी एरा देख लीजिए, आपको मौर्यन एम्पायर देखना है, आपको गुप्ता एम्पायर देखना है, आपको सल्तनत देखनी है, आपको मुगल का टाइम देखना है. दी public buildings and the art that was used, the architecture that was used, they all try to convey a message, and it is up to us as interpreters to be able to read that message that was there And also then there are also differences in the materials that were used. So if in ancient times wood and stone were the primary modes of construction, medieval times may you have stone architecture, sandstone say buildings banti thi. During the British time you have bricks. So all these also tell you about the times that we have been through, and the powers then that ruled during during these times, the styles that they adopted, and how your society adapted to those changes. And architectural styles were different in the center as compared to the regional styles. Sometimes people accepted this new modernized view of architecture that was introduced to us by Britain and by our colonial masters in a way. But then many people refused to accept it, and then there were some people who looked at combining the two, their regional or their local traditions as well as what was then inherited or gained from the British. And then this also shapes your national tastes and the perception of social spaces. But even with acceptance and rejections, styles in art and architecture, even if you have to widely consider your social culture and various other things, they have also adapted and evolved through time.
So now we have come to the end of the chapter. I hope that you have liked today's episode. Please like, share and subscribe and keep watching Tari.